Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It's a great pleasure to be able to come back to Yonsei University after about 7-8 years. I have been to Korea for over 200 times, but it's been like 6-7 years of absence in my career as I developed McKinsey office in Korea, Taiwan, Singapore, and Malaysia, etc. Anyway, this subject that we are covering today is extremely important at this particular moment. So I like to sort of start out by saying that just about everything on education will have to change. So let me use this text which I have prepared. My friend Alvin Toffler has written a book called The Third Wave. He was also a founding member of my university, Business Breakthrough in Japan. He was actually on the advisory group. His book, The Third Wave, is very well positioned at that time, like 20 years ago. The first wave, second wave, and at that time we're just entering into the third wave, the IT revolution. At the time, Windows 95 was published. Google was established in 1998, and therefore it was very appropriate to talk about the third wave. Now I feel that we're entering into the fourth wave, the next generation. He and I have many sort of points together, and whenever we're discussing, we agree on almost everything. So if he were alive, he would have written this book, which I have published in Japan. It's coming out in the paperback next month. As it was introduced, I have written 837 books, which is a Guinness record in Japan. Perhaps somebody in Brazil has written over 1,000 books. So I've got a long way to go before I can establish the Guinness record of publishing in the whole world. Anyway, we have seen these waves come in and go, but it's important to notice the beginning of the wave and the end of the wave. Each has the same pattern. Like this, the agricultural revolution took lots of people to cultivate the land and give food to people. Food supply was very labor intensive, etc. But if you look at the current population, the United States, for example, the world's largest agricultural products producer, is only less than 3% of population engaged in this. It was like 50% of Japan right after the World War II, but now we are about the same level, although you know the rice is fully supplied within Japan. So it was this labor intensive, but today on the right-hand side, you see it's all automated, and one machine can do the job of hundreds of farmers. The lower right picture is the Dutch farm, and that is all sort of like a factory. And they are the second largest agricultural products exporter in the world, although it's a very small land country. So it's amazing how people have sort of created the industry, and then toward the end of the industry, people do not need as many people as possible. Second wave industrial society. The whole world today is still in this mode. At the beginning of the industrial society, it was like this. It's very labor intensive. Coal mining was very, very hard work. But that's where, like in Scotland, the Industrial Revolution started out. Lots of people are engaged in feeding into the industry. But half after the 50% of that second wave, automation took place, and the factories needed less and less people, and the robots were replacing people. Japan did very well, so well that it created trade war with the United States, but that was like 30 years ago. And the problem is that Japan is still dwelling on this success. It's almost like repeating for encore the same music over and over again. Ministry of Education in Japan, likewise in Korea, are still educating people a la this mode. This is a huge problem, because if you are good in this one, you'll be competing with less developed countries as you go on. Today, we're competing with Thailand, we're competing with Indonesia, eventually we'll be competing with India, which means per capita GDP doesn't go up, productivity doesn't go up, as long as we are educating people for this period. And Korea has the same sort of spectrum of education, although a portion of the people have moved into the next phase, but majority of the people, particularly the educational process, is still dwelling on this revolution. And the third wave, as Alvin Toffler said, beginning, it hired a lot of people, call centers, the input makers. We are sort of using lots of people to make the input into the computer program. But now, the second phase, it's interesting that lots of work that is done on the paperwork, the white-collar work, is now automated and therefore use less and less people. Employment is cut off from this second phase of the third wave. Here is the sort of comparison of the professions which will be cut out from the society into the ones where people are still short of people. In other words, IT experts, creators are still very short. Therefore, there has to be a huge transformation of people from the early days of third wave into the second phase of the IT wave, the third wave. So professions will have to change. You have to change your expertise as we move on from the early days into the mature phase of the third wave. And of course, this shows exactly what kind of jobs will be in excess and what kind of jobs will be in short in terms of people supply. If you look at the labor productivity, $1,000 per employee, Japan has been stagnant for 35 years. This is because we're so successful in the second wave that we're still dwelling on that one, and therefore our productivity doesn't move up to the next level. Korea has surpassed Japan in terms of per capita GDP. And therefore, Korea is doing extremely well in terms of moving through this phase, except that it is highly represented by a small number of chaebols whose productivity is very high. And now we have entered into the fourth wave. The peak of the fourth wave may be 2035 to 40, where the singularity will kick in. And we are at the beginning of this. This one is smartphone revolution, AI revolution, and it is very different from IT revolution, the third wave that Alvin Toffler defined. At the beginning of this phase, fourth wave, lots of people are engaged in still labor-intensive delivery services, etc. And it's amazing how Ubers of this world are sort of creating jobs. But this company, Uber, is also developing automated cars, phase 5. And when that happens, their drivers will be all fired, okay? And therefore, they have two phases. One, to hire lots of people, thank you very much. But during the next phase, they will have to fire these guys. But anyway, The dichotomy is characteristic of these sort of industrial revolutions. The unicorns, which are sort of created new companies with the assumed market cap of $1 billion. United States, China, India, UK, Germany, etc. Japan is now falling apart in terms of this creating new companies. Although I have created, I mean, not me, but my students have created 800 companies, of which 25 are now IPO'd in the Tokyo Stock Exchange. India and the United Kingdom also doing quite well in parts of this fourth wave. The Japanese laws are all made 100 years ago, not changed dramatically, particularly the education. This is a huge problem. Japan's building standard hasn't changed in over 70 years. Biometrics, we have a national ID that doesn't have biometrics. And therefore, if you're stolen on this ID, that's the end of your economic life. Medical care, the same way. So our government was so successful over the Industrial Revolution, but they're still dwelling on that old comfortable zone. And from here on, something completely different from today's world will take place. For example, occupations expected to be reduced by big tech in the future. Driving, self-automated phase 5. What I feel comfortable is the police chasing the speeding, etc., will not be needed because these phase 5 cars all have the traffic rules all incorporated. Therefore, I can't wait until this day comes when all these traffic cops will be removed from the payroll. Anyway, everything else will change, and some are good, but this means that you have to find a new area where there's value added, where you can add value, where you can earn money, and you can demonstrate your living. And that's the role of education today. You see, education has to precede at least 20 years ahead of its time. For example, high school education today, when they are at their peak, year 35, 20 years from now, they will have to acquire skills that will feed them very well. But today, if you are sort of educating them with the same old textbooks and with the same old teachers, you will be completely out of job market in 20 years' time. Education must proceed 20 years ahead of its time. And that is exactly the same as singularity, where computer will keep moving ahead. Human beings can't move that fast. Okay, so industrial society versus cyber society, tremendous problem. You know, only 1989, of the top 11 companies, market cap-wise, we had almost all of them. Today, we have 0. And Toyota Motor Works has the highest market cap in Japan. That is ranked 24th. America complains about the industry and their weakness with industry, if you listen to the candidates of the president. But they are so strong that they are the top 10, and therefore, I don't know why they're complaining, why they're worried about China. You see, this is America's misunderstanding of their own strengths. The society has moved into the fourth wave where they do better than anybody else on earth. But they don't have that confidence if you listen to the political campaigns that is going on in the United States today. You see, in the 21st century, you need a few people. You don't need everyone to be educated, to be employed. You need a few of these breakthrough people to feed the rest. This means that you have to tax them heavily so that you can redistribute the wealth to the majority of the people. I have written the book that even in the days of singularity, only human beings can come up with idea of one from zero. 0 to 1, which is a very, very difficult task for computer. Computer can do the decimals very well, faster, better than anybody else. But they cannot think about a new entity on the zero base. That's why I wrote this book, From 0 to 1, and that symbolizes the role of human beings. Now in Japan, despite the educational system, whereas the whole country is falling behind, in the areas where Ministry of Education doesn't cover, such as sports, music, you know, Berlin Philharmonic's first concert master, Daishin Kashimoto. If you look at the worldwide orchestra, you can't find any orchestra without Japanese string players. And of course, in the computer games, manga, animation, etc., Japan is doing well because that's outside of Ministry of Education. You know, if they interfere with your education, we become as small as Japan is diminishing like this in the world. We have to abolish the Ministry of Education. I'm the best friend with the Japanese Ministry of Education. I've been saying this for 30 years. I hope I can go back home safely this time. But if you look at these areas, mangas, animation, games, my second son is one of the champion games creators. He went to all these prestigious schools and dropped out halfway. First son is also dropped out, but he went to learn how to make animation, digital Hollywood. Was a school, vocational school he went to. Now he is living on this type of service, plus drones. He is the creator of 3 drone funds, world's first drone fund, 1, 2, 3, and seems to be doing very well. And he has invested over 50 companies. Therefore, despite he is a dropout of college, he has to do due diligence. So he is learning management, long way. But now he's sitting on the outside board, like 6 or 7 companies. If you look at the cuisines, these chefs, Tokyo has more Michelin 3-star restaurants than Paris. Paris and Kyoto is about the same. And Osaka is about the same as Kyoto. New York comes number 5. You know some of these chefs, I go these places quite often. They are creative. They look at the vegetable, they look at the fish, and they come up with the idea, 0 to 1. And they know how to serve or what kind of plate. They are very imaginative. And therefore, I appreciate these guys. In my class, I get some of these chefs to come in and talk about how they discover the little weed in the grass, in the field, and then convert them into one of the top cuisines. It's quite impressive to listen to them, how they can create everything up here, and then produce on the plate. So Japan is doing okay in this. So take the ministry out. And of course, there are quite a few jobs that cannot be replaced by AI or computer. Here we have to sort of make sure that we have enough people to take care of people who need help. It's extremely important to do this, they may not be well paid. Therefore, we have to tax those wealthy people who make sort of a big going in the AI society so that we can distribute wealth to these people. The role of the government as a redistribution agency is extremely important. And as I said, education will have to precede 20 years before they can be real sort of actors in the society. And therefore, we have to do it now. And therefore, this subject today is extremely important. Some are going out, but we have to sort of create a new one and encourage a new one to come in, encourage young people to do something new. Extremely important to do so. So education for the fourth wave, there is no answer. You have to find the answer. Therefore, in Denmark, they have abolished the word teacher, because the notion of teacher means you have something to teach. But in the 21st century, you have to find the answer. And therefore, the notion of teacher was abolished in 1994 in Denmark. I took 30 Japanese executives to go and look at this situation. It's very impressive. They are 30 years ahead of us. Okay, recruit, fresh out of college, too late. You know, we used to hire college graduates and then educate them in the company. God forbid, if senior people in the company teaches the new one, you are losing all the fresh talents because you are sort of educating them with the old knowledge and expertise. You have to stop hiring people, educate inside the company. That's why I said NG. Find the right talent from anywhere in the world. English language makes it a little easier. You know, even in Russia and Belarus, some of those people who can understand English and can program in English language are engaged in business offshore, you know, taking in some of these difficult tasks from large companies in the United States. Cyber employment. Now we are sort of doing this one part-time. Only like 1 month, your expertise is extremely encouraged to come into our company, form part of the team, work together. Outsource key functions like R&D. You know, Six Senses, a company called Six Senses, undertake R&D activities from establishments, engineering, sales, purchasing, accounting. Hire teenagers. Some of our successful companies are hiring teenagers. And the Germans are also doing this in a Meister system. So second year in the junior high school, they will come into the company and have the classroom 2 days a week, 3 days, real exercise with the Meister, the master. Teenagers and apprentices in the company under Meister is a must. Some of our best managed companies are doing this one. They reach out to high school. They reach out to junior high because they are quite open to new ideas and new skills. And in terms of computers, games, and use of smartphone, their chromosome is built on the smartphone, and therefore it's much better to work with these people. So the only thing you have to do is have them think about something new from 0 to 1. Nurture the conceptualization from childhood. Okay, so this is all I wanted to say for this given time. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Ohmae. Okay, now before we wrap up, we're going to have a quick Q&A session, if it's okay with you. And on the screen, we have a list of questions. And would you be able to take a look at the questions over here? And then, yeah. And you can maybe choose a question and answer for us, please.
Good question. Who should educate the youngsters if the old teachers can't do it? I think those who are engaged in the business today should spend at least one day or two a month going into schoolyards and share their experience. For example, my son will go into a classroom of young people and create computer games together. And this way, you know, you are not learning from the teacher per se, but you are learning from the real person who are doing this. In terms of security, I have advocated in Japan, we should have some of the fire marshals, police officers to come into the classroom. Mother who's raised 3 children should come into the classroom and share their experience of how they grow kids. I think people in the society, some part of the society is in this fourth wave, and therefore it's important that they come into the classroom, not the old teachers. You know, Harvard University, Stanford University, I was teaching at Stanford. Case studies, terrible, because it takes 9 months to develop the case. By the time you present the case, companies don't exist. And therefore, it's a huge, huge problem. Case studies approach that these schools developed and sharing with the rest of the whole universe of MBA courses, too late. In my school, case study is every week. It's called R-Talks, real-time online case. So this week, one company. Were you the president of this company? What would you do? And everyone reaches out to the information and then competes on the cyberspace. And then by the end of the week, on Sunday, I come up with my version. So I'm at age 81. I still have to do one case per week, which keeps me young. So I'm not complaining, but case study on the real time is the only approach. Traditional casework, too late. When I was teaching at Stanford, there was a case called Why Ford Was Beaten Up by Nissan. By this time, Nissan was bankrupt. So, you know, students laugh at the professor who are begging people to say, use this case study material. So for the time being, you know, assume that this is the case. But in my experience in the 1990s, 97 through 1999, where I was there, 3 students are much better informed about the cyberspace than one professor. It's amazing how these guys are getting the real information, real time. Therefore, even business schools will have to change their method. Real-time online case study. We started out this one 20 years ago. So, you know, about 50 cases a year. By the time they get MBA, 100 cases, their brain starts working. Okay, so I would say schools, the teachers should be totally different kind of people, not a professional teacher.
Thank you. And can you choose another question to answer for us? Should we try the last one?
The last question, this one, you know, I have students literally all over the world because it's cyber ever since 1998. Therefore, it's independent of location. Ministry of Education in Japan, in order for you to give a certificate of graduation, you have to comply with our rules. So I said, what are the rules? Well, you have to have a library. I said, people use Amazon for ordering books. But they say, no, you have to comply with Japanese law. So lots of people send me books. I was throwing them out like this. But now I put these things in line like this. And then ministry officials come once a year, check this library. So you have library, we have library. These books should be thrown out, but it's sort of okay. Medical room, where is your medical room? They're in Germany, they're in Singapore. So what does this medical room mean about Japanese law? Schools must have medical room. So I said, okay, we have medical facilities here. So our vice president has a tanker and these stretchers, etc., beside his desk. That's it. And the ministry comes and says, okay, medical system. So I cannot say that we cannot educate Ministry of Education, but we know how to comply with them superficially and offer this type of education literally throughout the whole world, so long as there is internet connection. So I would say, time-wise, you can choose the time within a week when you can devote yourself, a few hours a week, then you'll be able to graduate. We will allow 8 years for graduation instead of 4. MBA, 5 years instead of 2. Some people want it shorter. So we offer short courses for skills development. And then if they take 1, 2, 3 such pieces, we will sort of give them credit for these. And therefore, if you put them together, they would add up to the necessary credit for graduation to get the certificate. But very few people today are looking for a certificate. They don't want the skinship like this, graduation, because with this kind of thing, you go to a company, you go up like this. No longer. People want to have skills on which to live. Therefore, skills much more important than diplomatic paper. And I have seen this particularly after the corona plague. It's extremely different world today. So I would say the audience, the students' body, it's changed dramatically. They like to have something on which to make their living instead of sheepskin. So universities with prestige still going to say, we are going to give you this graduation paper, no longer. And it's a huge change for those who are doing this type of education. You will notice this, and I think it is a very big change, particularly after the corona instance.
Right. Thank you so much. We're going to wrap up the session here. Thank you so much, Dr. Ohmae.
Thank you.